Bright colors, playful clothes, and elements of nostalgia that entice and tease the brain. This is the world of Kidcore. Hello, if you're new to the channel, I'm Psy-Fi, your local alien, otherwise known as Psy. In this channel, I would do deep dives into aesthetics that you thought you knew, but really there's a whole other meaning. Before we learn about the psychology behind Kidcore, let's ask ourselves, what is Kidcore? Kidcore came about the 2010s, although its style reflected one of the 90s and early 2000s. It reminisced a colorful and innocent childhood, and its fashion and overall elements prioritized a carefree nature over practicality. This style is similar, but not the same, as J-fashion and styles similar to that such as Decora. J-fashion is a bit more on the elaborate and intense side with tons of embellishments. When it comes to key elements of Kidcore, it includes toys from the 90s and early 2000s, cartoon characters such as Looney Tunes and other shows, bold and bright colors, and really anything nostalgic and retro for those eras. Now that we are acquainted with key elements and the message of Kidcore, now we can dive into more specific aspects such as clothing and overall looks. When one thinks of the term kid, images that might pop up are bright colors that really don't fit into the societal norm and references to kid shows. Like a lot of you watching and myself, we all had shows that we watched that influenced the appearance of Kidcore individuals. Examples include Care Bears, Dora the Explorer, Paw Patrol, and especially Strawberry Shortcake. All of these shows combined with the previously spoken about elements of Kidcore all have in common a sense of playfulness, a vigor of life, and of course an unmatched burst of color. This translates over to what we see in the fashion of Kidcore, with colorful and mismatched clothes paired with personalized nostalgic pieces. One certain video that caught my eye by Kalina Callie on YouTube made a Get Ready With Me Kidcore outfit, and while watching it, something she said piqued my interest. Let's watch it.
We're gonna be giving child, and I'll give you child. Starting with the Crayola shirt. Do we have a childish sweater? Oh boy, do we! You had to know that we were gonna use this. I just feel like adults would be so much more happy if they're wearing things like this. A little squat. You know how usually we wear bustiers? Well, today it's a beret. I've decided these are my new favorite hats. Looking for chaos accessories. Oh, and the little gummy bear. It makes me think of those like candy necklaces. You know what I'm talking about? In my opinion, I don't really think go-go boots and children really go together. Instead, I'm thinking some fun, colorful Uggs. Maybe some socks that don't match the rest of the outfit. Excellent. My most silly purse is definitely this one. Is it tall toddler? Or is it just colorful, fun, fashionista? Just use this as your sign to embrace the crazy today, okay?
She said, and I quote, "I feel like adults would be so much more happy if they were wearing things like this." The real video has now begun, so grab your cloud sweaters and Crayola shirts, my people, as we now get into why Kidcore has re-emerged in today's culture and the psychological understanding behind it. Going back to what Kalina said about how dressing like she and thousands of other Kidcore individuals did, people would be more happy. Examining her outfit, the thing that coins it as Kidcore is definitely the bright colors. As previously discussed, one of Kidcore's most signifying traits is the use of color, so that makes sense of where we should start first. According to a number of psychology articles, color plays a big role in affecting our feelings and mood because about 80% of our sensory impressions come from visuals. Different colors are associated with different emotions such as red with passion, blue with peace, and more. A survey in 2020 asked people what emotions they associate colors with. 51% said black was for sadness, 52% said yellow means joy, and 50% said pink for love, and so on. But can colors have an actual impact on how we feel, or is it purely based on personal preference and opinion? Well, the answer is yes. Color can stimulate blood pressure, how we react to something, and so forth. This is because color releases a chemical called dopamine into our system. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, and a neurotransmitter is a signal that travels to our dendrites, which is in our neurons, which eventually connects the message to the brain. Think of it like a pathway. The neurotransmitter, or in this case dopamine, is released and begins traveling through the neurons. It opens up the ends of the neuron only to go to the next one. This continues until it reaches the brain and the brain deciphers the message. Dopamine is referred to as a feel-good chemical and stimulates a good mood. It's also beneficial for memory, movement, and so much more. So basically, in summary, color does affect our mood, and more bright and bold the color, usually the happier the mood. Now that we have a scientific understanding, let's move into the emotional aspect of it. Kidcore, as discussed, was really popular and had its home in the 2010s, a not too big step away from its predecessor Y2K, except just more colorful and kid-like. But why has Kidcore reemerged almost a decade later? Why did a whole new generation decide to embrace the childlike quirkiness of this aesthetic? Kidcore began to re-emerge around 2020 and so forth during and after the pandemic. During the pandemic, so many people were on lockdown and isolated from the entirety of their lives, inducing loneliness. Since people were all cooped up by themselves in the house, activities were, well, limited. The internet's golden era was during the pandemic because millions of lonely people began to use it. People were also affected mentally by the pandemic, with so many terrible things happening that so many teens, or today's Gen Z, had to experience.
First of all, currently we have this epidemic of loneliness because more than 60% of Gen Z in the US reporting feeling alone.
When teens and preteens have the news flash that the world kinda sucks, this causes depression, lack of motivation, and a lack of natural happiness. This leads also to a need for happiness and fulfillment and also stability. When you grow up as a kid, that is probably some of the most safest and stable times of your life, where you have everything handed to you for most families, and everything just seems to fit. So of course it would make sense for people to start going to the Kidcore aesthetic to find happiness and peace in there when the entire world is crumbling around them. Kidcore individualists find peace and happiness in the color and in the life and in that kid-like sense that everything is gonna be alright, and that's why so many people are going to this aesthetic, and that's why it's reemerged, because the world needs it right now, because the world is crumbling and people are realizing that too soon into their preteens with the effects of COVID. Depression rates have higher so much, and this is how the people are fighting against it, finding comfort in their inner child. The psychology in Kidcore runs so deep that it's literally trying to invoke the joy that we all had as a child to ignore or just distract ourselves from how terrible the world became when COVID hit. The Bazaar, a fashion magazine, even wrote about this, saying about the psychology of Kidcore is basically just a way for people to connect with their inner child and go back to the memories that made them happy, because right now, they don't feel happy. Their dopamine levels are decreasing, and with the colors and the brightness and memories, it gets better. Even Juno Moth, one of my favorite YouTubers, in her own video about the psychology of Kidcore, mentioned the mental struggles that Gen Z went before COVID and how it worsened after COVID.
Waiting that, say, disorders are unreal or that people claiming to have them are simulating. The thing is that they are somewhat correct about the number of people affected by mental illness. There is a rise of depression and anxiety among children and adolescents. According to CDC, children with diagnosed anxiety and depression increased from 5.4% in 2003 to 8.4% in 2012. And those statistics are pre-COVID. According to WHO, suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among people between the ages of 15 and 24, with globally 13% of the 10 to 19-year-olds experiencing mental disorders.
With people experiencing so many mental disorders or simulating them, or other people, onlookers, blaming people who genuinely had mental disorders that they were just simply simulating them, that will affect someone either way. Kidcore has become a refuge for so many teenagers, adults, preteens, of an area that they can express their childlike self, and a place where they can just flee from the world that they got a way too quick and soon preview to. My final thoughts on the aesthetic Kidcore are, well, mixed. As a person who has actually dabbled in Kidcore and felt so much comfort in it, it is an amazing, colorful, bright, and fun aesthetic. But when you look at the cause of it and how it has affected so many of the psychological aspects of so many teenagers and why it came into being, it gets a bit dark and it gets a bit concerning. But I feel like this is a good outlet for people to express themselves and to actually feel like they're safe in a world where it's hard to feel that. But it's dangerous when people start to only stay in that childlike sense and isolate themselves from the rest of the world. And that's when it starts to get a bit dangerous. So, what are my final thoughts? In the end, Kidcore is an amazing and colorful aesthetic that I feel like anyone can enjoy and feel happy and safe in the quirkiness and fun of it. But you have to be careful with the loneliness epidemic that caused its reemerge, and be careful that your dopamine levels aren't too affected by it, and you have to be careful in what steps you take to regulate it. I am not at all a licensed psychologist or a doctor, but my opinion on this is that because of the background of Kidcore and how it's supposed to increase the dopamine levels to replace the loneliness and lack of happiness because of the pandemic, you do have to be careful that you don't get too addicted to it, because that is a problem that a lot of people get addicted to things that produce dopamine, so you have to be careful with that. But other than that, I would enjoy this aesthetic. It's a great aesthetic, but it also has a so sad of a background that people need to be reminded of. In the end, in summary, whatever you want to call it, Kidcore is a great aesthetic. It's colorful and it's fun, but in the end, people do need to be aware of its past and why it has reemerged in today's culture.
My heart's a stereo, it beats for you, so listen close. Hear my
Hello, Psy-Fi here again. I'm just going to give some credit to some of the creators. For example, this YouTuber, this video is from Cybergirl, at Cybergirl on YouTube, go follow her. All the other videos, I believe you can see the articles for. This one was for the Psychology Today article, and the rest of the videos are screen recordings from me.